Time is about 7 o'clock. This time I'd like to ask if everybody would please stand and observe a moment of prayer. Thank you. This time I'll ask City Clerk if you'll please call the roll.
Councilmember Knight.
Here.
Blackwell.
Here.
Joyner. Here. T.J. Walker.
Here.
Daltrich.
Here.
Harris.
Here.
Javaris Walker.
Great. Thank you very much. This time I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the minutes, consideration of the minutes of the regular scheduled City Council meeting, which was held on June 26th of 2023. Motion made by Councilman Joyner. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Daltrich. Is there a need for discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. All opposed, like sign. Item carries. This time, I'd like to ask if there are any additions or deletions to the agenda. I understand that there's a request that we remove the 6% COLA adjustment from the table. Move that item from the table for discussion. Is there anything else?
That'll take a motion to move it.
That will take a motion to, yes. I was going to get them all listed, and then I was going to, if there were any other additions or deletions, but I believe there are none. So I've got a motion made by Councilman Joyner. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Blackwell and Knight. So we'll add that to item number 14 on our agenda tonight. With that said, I'll turn the meeting over to our city manager, Keith Rogers.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight's community update is as follows. First, I would like to thank the City of Rocky Mount's Fire Department. They were deployed last Thursday to help the wildfire that occurred out in Henderson County. So we're happy to report that our personnel returned safely to Rocky Mount earlier today. So again, thank you to our fire department and our chief and all those personnel. The Jingle Mingle Artisan Market will be held from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Saturday at the Imperial Arts Center. And so we will be featuring art, jewelry, photography, pottery, artisan gifts, ornaments, and more. So this is a free annual event, and it's also made possible through our partnership with the Imperial Center as well as the Tar River Arts Collaborative. And then finally, I would just like to remind the community that the city facilities and offices will be closed on Thursday and Friday, November 23rd and 24th in observation of the Thanksgiving holiday. Thank you, Mayor. That concludes my update.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for our city manager? Okay, hearing none, that moves us on to item number 7 on our agenda, which is a resolution I'd like for council to consider. And I'll read it. Resolution recognizing and congratulating Rocky Mount Parks and Recreational Department's youth track team, the Rocky Mount Rockets, for qualifying for the U.S. ATF National Junior Olympics Championships. Whereas USA Track and Field is one of the most visible youth athletic development programs in the country, sponsoring state, regional, and national track events for youth athletes across the United States. And whereas the team members who compete in the state, regional, and national championship meets must qualify based upon individual and team performance, as well as stellar times recorded during various local meets that lead up to the qualifications. And whereas the Rocky Mount Rockets, comprised of the following team members: Kendris Davis, Christian Knight, and Nakia Wilson, based on their state and regional performances, qualified for the Nationals. And whereas the members of the team, members and the events for which they qualified are as follows: Kendris Davis, the 3,000, the 1,500, and 500 meters; Christiana Knight, 800, 400, and 200 meters; Nakia Wilson, the 3,000, 1,500, and 500 meters. And whereas Kendris Davis was an individual 13-14 girls USATF North Carolina state champion in the 33,000, 1,500, and 800 meters, and the individual 13-14 girls USATF regional champions in the 3,000 meters. And whereas Christiana Knight was the individual SU girls USATF North Carolina State Championship in the 800 meters, the individuals SU girls USATF regional champion in the SOO 400, 200 meters, and earned the USATF All-American honors in the SOO 400, 200 meters based on her performance at the national championships. And whereas Nakia Wilson was the individual 11 to 12 girls USATF North Carolina champion in the 3,000 and 1,500 meters, and the individual 11 to 12 girls USATF regional championship in the 1,500 meters. And whereas the youth athletes performed in a manner that distinguished them individually and collectively as a team and brought credit not only to themselves but to their families, their city, and their community. And whereas also contributing to team success was their outstanding coaches, Mark Davis and Chris Knight, who provided leadership and coached the team members, caring for them like family and guiding them through their various meets and the support of their parents. Now therefore be it resolved that I, the mayor of the City of Rocky Mount and Rocky Mount City Council, hereby congratulate the Rocky Mount Parks and Recreation Department's Rocky Mount Parks Youth Track Team, the Rocky Mount Rockets. And be it further resolved, this resolution shall be spread upon the pages of the minutes of the proceeding, and a copy shall be presented to each team member and the coaches for who were instrumental in winning this phenomenal championship. Do I have a motion to adopt this the 13th day of November?
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Joyner, seconded by Councilman Daughtridge. Is there a need for discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Congratulations. Come up.
Council, if you want to be a part, please just go ahead and fill in behind. Come on, stop, please. Come down or up either way. Yes, sir. We do. One more. Let's see if we can put this one. I'll make you a promise you'll get a shot. I promise you. All right. Ready on me to start with, please? In 3, 2, 1. Ooh, one more time. 3, 2, 1. Hold just 1 second. I'm gonna let me. I'm stuck. Come on. There you go. Do whatever. Right here, if you would, please. Ready? 3, 2, 1. One more time. 3, 2, 1. Perfect. One more on this. I'm good. You good? All right. Ladies, congratulations. Well done, folks. Oh, Alex, I didn't know you knew him. Sorry about that. Good job. Thank you.
Okay, this time I'd like to make a presentation in the honor and recognition of Apostle Alice M. Dickens, the founder of God's United Churches of Deliverance, Agape Fellowship Churches of Deliverance, for her love and dedication to the Rocky Mount community. In witness hereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city of Rocky Mount, North Carolina, to be affixed this 13th day of November 2022. I'd like to ask members to please come forward so we can present this. Yeah, all right, absolutely. This time I'd like to recognize Councilman Blackwell.
Thank you. I know we just presented a plaque to the memory of a phenomenal, powerful woman who moved Rocky Mount in so many ways that have never been recognized. Apostle Alice McKnight Dickens took care of people that other people did not care about before it became fashionable to do so. She opened up her home, her church, her neighborhood. She was a pioneer, first black female woman pastor in Rocky Mount. Built the building right across the street from the event center. So as far as I'm concerned, she paved the way and vision for where Rocky Mount should grow to. And has always been a stalwart prayer warrior. And I don't remember her full phrase, but I do remember this part. No matter what it looks like, y'all might finish it. What is it? No matter what it looks like, come on, help me out. That's right.
Looks like, feel like, seem like, or is. Situational circumstance.
I report victory. So thank you, Pastor McKnight. Apostle McKnight, thank you to her family and her church for carrying out her vision, the international ministry that touches people from around the world with love and hope and compassion, solid word and enthusiasm. Always standing with the people, always doing what's right. We appreciate her power and her impact, and we appreciate you all carrying forward her mission. Thank you, Brother Dickens. Appreciate you, Bishop.
Thank you, Councilman Blackwell. That brings us to the public petitions portion of our meeting tonight. The public petitions portion of the City Council meeting is an opportunity for public comment, and the City Council appreciates your attendance and thanks you for expressing your views and opinions. The City Council values all citizen input. This is an opportunity to raise a question or present a request of council. However, in most cases, council members will not respond to public comments, but may refer a matter to the city manager or staff for follow-up. Time will be monitored in order to give everyone an opportunity to speak, and speakers will have 3 minutes. Please be aware that sign-in sheets must be presented by the security officer prior to the opening of the meeting. And if an organized group is present to speak on a common issue, please designate one person to present the group's comments. If your comments are in regard to an item that is subject to a public hearing, please wait until that item is introduced to speak. Time will also be monitored. If your comments are in regard to an evidentiary hearing, additional time may be granted. The City Council requests that you please adhere to the following guidelines. complete a sign-in sheet, address comments to the council as a whole and not to individual council members or city staff, speak from the podium in a civil, non-argumentative, and respectful manner. Personal attacks which have the potential to disrupt the meeting will not be tolerated, and you'll be asked to sit down or removed from the meeting. And keep comments to 3 minutes. Thank you. This time I'd like to invite Dr. Kim Koo to the podium.
Good evening.
Evening.
Last Saturday, I attended an event to unveil a North Carolina highway historical marker at the Red Hill Missionary Baptist Church. The marker's title is Equal Rights League, and this is what it says. Newly freed people, 1866, rallied at Hammond's Hill here, which is Red Hill now, for voting rights, fair wages, self-defense, became early grassroots civil rights organization. The newly freed slaves were organizing to build better lives after the Civil War and during Reconstruction. This is part of the forgotten history of African American people in Ashcombe County, which were unearthed by the hard work of the Phoenix Historical Society. The marker reminds us that what happened in the past is still very relevant to us in the present. 150 years later, and we have not achieved any of the goals outlined in the marker. We have become more disenfranchised by political games and maneuvering of both parties. We do not see fair wages as attested by the current struggles of our sanitation workers and other city employees. And instead of self-defense, the killing of black people was so uncontrolled that it sparked the Black Lives Matter movement. There is no progress, and instead we are moving backwards. The powers that ruled us use our tax dollars to prop up failing mega banks while giving businesses and corporations huge tax cuts, and send our hard-earned tax dollars to other countries like Ukraine and Israel to fight as proxies in imperialist wars to hold on to US domination of the world. Worse still is that our government is clearly complicit in the genocide of the Palestinians in Gaza by continually blocking the United Nations majority wishes to have an immediate ceasefire and to allow humanitarian aid to get to the people of Gaza. Meanwhile, our city council sits smugly blocking fair raises to sanitation workers who are majority African Americans in their time of need, supported by a majority only because some African American council members have forgotten their roots and the mighty struggles of their ancestors for voting rights, fair wages, and self-defense. Shame on you. If any of you claim to have any humanity left, work to make the lives of your workers better, give them the raises they need, and pass a resolution supporting an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Nathleen Aree to the podium.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I must say you look impressive today. I am concerned and I am requesting for transparency as a citizen of Rocky Mount, North Carolina. I would like to know the reason the city council member had for tabling the discussion of the city workers' pay increase last month. The citizens want to know how much is available for pay increases, especially for our precious sanitation workers. And that discussion could be held, we would be having transparency and we would not go home wondering what's available, how long it's going to take. I know it's a process, but we as citizens want to be informed of the process. At this point in time, there seems to be an effort of some person or persons to avoid the issue. First, by staging an absence from the city council meeting, and second, by tabling a discussion that could easily shed some light on the situation for a simple increase in pay for our city workers. What's next? We, the citizens, are watching, and we are praying that you will come to a reasonable agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Mr. Richard Petway to the podium.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
My name is Richard Perway. I live at 400 East Thomas Street, and I am a U.S. vet. I went to war to fight for other country, but now I gotta fight again. John Lewis, I quote, said, I appeal to all of you to get into the great revolution that is sweeping the nation. Get in and stay in the streets of every city, every village, and hamlet of this nation, until true freedom come until the revolution of 1776 is completed. With that said, I said it never will be completed until the city workers get their fair share. We cannot stand and fight unless we win. We must stand together. We must fight together. Not one step backward. We must go forward. And I say this to each and every one of y'all. If you got a conscience and you lay down at night, how can you wake up in the morning and say no to the city workers?
Thank you, Mr. Petway. I'd like to invite Ms. Mumtaz Shaikh to the podium.
Mr. Mayor, council members, ladies and gentlemen, while globally the United States is embedded in 3 dangerous wars, domestically the fierce class warfare is raging unchecked, a warfare between the working class versus the rich, the haves versus the have-nots, the billionaires versus the working class. In this class warfare, the working class has been on the losing side as the demands for a fair share of the billions made by the employers have fallen on deaf ears, at least in the past 20 years. Currently, the working class is caught in an unprecedented cost of living crisis and are no longer willing to accept crumbs for longer hours of back-breaking work with increased stress and pressure placed on them to produce more with less. They are organizing, rising, and marching forward, unleashing this year alone 335 strikes in 550 locations in the United States, demanding a living wage with benefits, better working conditions, and COLA, a running theme in these protests. Employers in power who fail to respond to worker demands are seeing immediate backlash as continued and deepening income inequality serve to perpetuate the class struggle, which brings me to the textbook case of a class warfare in the city council between the oppressors, some of the city council members, and the oppressed, the sanitation workers, in their long-running demand for a living wage. Tell the public now why you are blocking their demand for a paltry 15% wage increase after recklessly implementing 36% and 27% increases for the police and the first responders respectively, without reflection, without debate, and with racial preferences written all over these staggering increases. And now Mr. Jones, the spokesperson for his team, seeking a living wage, has been muzzled, silenced, and suspended from work. Those who initiated and supported his suspension have weaponized their weapon and are sponsors of a terror campaign in the city. Mr. Jones faced the cruelty of power in his unwavering support of a just cause. He is not a villain. He is our city hero. I urge the public to demand the release of Mr. Jones and demand solid answers from those who fiercely oppose a living wage for the sanitation workers. Show up, stand up, speak up, and be fired up every week in the city council. Push back against the racial, social, and economic injustice unfolding before you. Reject the abuse of power to inflict pain and hardship on a whole community of the least fortunate of us in the city council.
Thank you, Ms. Shaikh. Thank you.
Let me just say one more thing.
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to invite Butch Dancy to the podium.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Camilla Butch Dancy II, life fully paid member of the Rocky Mount Branch NAACP, Executive Committee of the Democratic Party, Edgecombe County, and serve on the State Committee. First of all, Mr. Mayor, it would be nice if, I think David Combs, when he called out the person behind them, because I could have been ready and walking this way. So I think that would eliminate some time in the future. But I just got one question. Oh, congratulations on everybody that was re-elected. But I got one question. Like I say, serving on the NAACP Legal Redress Committee and other areas across the state. I have one question. You're elected by the people. And what I have seen, I'm having a hard time trying to figure out who you all are accountable to. So my question is, who are y'all accountable to?
Thank you. I'd like to invite James Wren to the podium.
How you doing?
Good.
I'm James Wren. Been a resident of Edgecombe County since 1980, past president of the UB 150 chapter at Cummins Rocket Engine Plant. And first, let's give me a shout out. Congratulations to the Rocky Mount Rockets track team and my good friend for years, fellow runner Mark Davis. And congratulations. But I come to you today to speak on behalf of the sanitation workers. Last time we met, sanitation worker Arnie Jones delivered a petition signed by a number of sanitation workers asking for a 15% across the board for sanitation workers and a 6% cost of living to all city employees. A number of those workers that signed that petition, according to public records, are making $17.67, which is $36,753 a year, contrary to what WRL put out in its news report a month ago, that starting pay for sanitation workers in Rocky Mount was $40,000. It's not $40,000. Workers deserve a fair raise, and we asked this council to give them the fair hearing it wants. Now, after Mr. Jones delivered that petition, last week after this mayor's election was over, the city made efforts to terminate Mr. Jones. I'm also a historian with the Phoenix Historical Society and done much research on the 1978 Rocky Mount sanitation workers. And now they're putting Mr. Jones in the same position they put Alexander Evans in 1978. We call on justice for Mr. Jones and reinstatement of Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Wren. This time I'd like to invite Cooper Blackwell to the podium.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
We stand before you once again, the NAACP, and the members of our community to express a concern about the sanitation workers. It's with a heavy heart that today we have to address the council again about an issue that we feel like it's not just a budgetary issue, but it's an issue of equality and justice. It's an issue of fairness. And in our last council meeting decision to table the matter, left many of the community bewildered. They were really upset about it. And we can't overlook the irony that our city, which aspires to become a national beacon of hope for equity, for justice and fairness, with our efforts with Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and so much that we've done downtown, has faltered in recognizing and understanding the importance of what our purpose is, to be for the people. We falter in recognizing our individual contributions and the contributions of those in the audience right now to keep our streets clean and keep our city running smoothly. I commend Councilman Knight and Councilman Blackwell for being steadfast in their commitment to ensuring that the compensation and treatment for the sanitation workers is a top priority. But Mr. Joyner has stood for that as well. But their courage has to serve as a reminder to everyone else on the council that with the privilege that's bestowed upon us, and in each of you, that you all have made commitments to support all city workers, not just a select few. Mr. Manager presented, after 30 days, a plan to swiftly increase the salaries of the police for 36%. Shortly followed by the fire department by 27% within less than 60 days. You know, it's been well over 100 days now, and, you know, we still haven't we've been here week after week with no avail. We acknowledge the work that they're doing, that everybody is doing, but the sanitation workers are demanding a fair raise. So we've seen the pay study, we've seen the numbers, we know it's possible, we just got to figure out how to make it work. And the NAACP is going to be here every time with the community members until we see something's done about it. So we urge you to make it happen tonight. Let's make a fair action. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Blackwell. I would like to remind everybody that
Well, my time is up, so I think I might just stand here until the bell rings.
that's more than fine.
You know, I think it's important, you know, also that, you know, as we collectively move, you know, about equity in our city and prioritizing healthcare, you
Time
know,
is up.
spending.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, I'd like to remind everybody, too, that we are not to make comments directed to any individual council members or to city staff. This time, I'd like to ask Ms. Crystal Weems Anderson to the podium.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
I want to
evening.
say congratulations to everyone for being back in their positions. I come here to really change the subject of the topic that we're discussing this evening. Given the mere fact is there are a lot of citizens or community members that don't have a voice within this community, and I come to speak on their behalf, and those citizens are the youth that we have in our community. I know right now, presently, we're going through a demerger and we're transitioning the school systems. But back in March of 2022, I sent an email to Edgecombe County and Nash County about the conditions of our school and the things that were happening in our school when it comes to gangs, activities, when it comes to drug paraphernalia ending up in our elementary schools. And I am aware that there are many council members that are now on our transition team. So I am asking you that as you go into this transition, that you take these things into consideration and that you ask Nash County Public School System to be transparent about what's going on in the school systems and how we can get services for our children. When I sent that letter back over a year ago, way over a year ago, I received no response. The response that I received was, we would like to put you on the parent advisory team. But in order for you to be on that team, you had to put your child back into a school that I deemed unsafe for my children. So therefore, in addition to that, I got a report from DSS threatening me to take me to court to take my children because I refused to put them back into a school system where they had been bullied, where they had been tainted, where they had been assaulted, and where my child had been raped by a pedophile. So I'm asking you guys to take into consideration what's going on in our school system, because there are children that are in this community that have been assaulted by pedophiles in the school system. And don't allow them to come over into this new school system until you address that issue with them. In addition, what services are going to be provided for those children that are the victims of this adult? What services are going to be continued in this school system once they come over? What services are going to be provided? What are we going to say to the parents when their child decides to commit suicide because no one is listening to them, because no one hears their voice? Now, these are the real issues that are going on in our community, and we need to take the time to sit with our youth and find out what's really going on. Because the issues that we see these adults are going through, our children are going through bigger issues that we can't even see on the outside. When you see your children sitting in the park and they're not going to school because they don't feel safe in our schools. When you see them not going to their house and they're running away in the school system because they don't feel safe at home. So what are we going to do about that? We can talk about affordable housing, economic development, but when are we going to talk about youth development? When are we going to really put money into our youth? When are we going to sit down and really start talking to them about what they want? Because the adults can make decisions on their own, but our youth are at our hands.
Thank you, ma'am. I'd like to invite Adrian Copeland to the podium.
Hi, so my comments tonight, I just wanted to build upon actually what's said in the beginning of every public petition. there's rules that are read out for all of us to follow for decorum, and I think they're good rules to have in place. But what strikes me as interesting is that it does seem like over time, the rules don't necessarily apply, or maybe there aren't rules for the council up there as a whole. So, I mean, just to go through, it says address comments to council as a whole and not to individual council members or city staff. But it does seem like in times past, some of you up there, or maybe all of you will say not as a whole, have addressed comments to individual people. And I think let's have the same rules back and forth, the same rules that apply. And same thing as speak from the podium in a civil, non-argumentative, and respectful manner, the same thing. We should have that same level of respect that you require of us. We should get that from you. Personal attacks, I mean, that goes without saying. Let's just try to keep it civil. And all of that so that each of us can open our ears to hear each other and open our hearts to maybe listen to what the other side has to say. Because especially this past election season, things have gotten really, really nasty. And I think that's not going to take us in any sort of a good direction. So let's try to just all work together and listen. And maybe we can work together and real unity can come from that.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Teresa Alston Stokes to the podium.
Good evening. I am Teresa Alston Stokes, and I want to thank everyone who came out who genuinely voted for me in this past election. There is a lot of work still to be done, but I do want to make it very clear that I could not understand how Rocky Mount could have a municipal election that included the mayor's race, 3 city council seats, and it was a lack of publicity. Not to mention when there was a runoff race. As a city of Rocky Mount, it wasn't about endorsing. It was about informing the citizens. So I hope in the future that whenever we do have elections or whenever the census is here, that we will inform the citizens, because this was not an election to be taken lightly. Again, as I stand before you, there's much work to still be done, and I will continue to advocate as always. But in the meantime, remember, as a mayor and as a council person, it's your responsibility to serve the citizens. And if you're not serving the citizens, then who are you serving? Thank you so much, and again, thank you all for your support. For my first time running, 4 more years, we'll be here sooner than later, and I plan to come back.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Mr. Bronson Williams to the podium.
I want to say good evening to you.
Good evening.
I would hope that when you ask people in the community if they love the city, I hope the answer is yes. However, there continues to be a wedge that drives people into 2 distinct and opposite paths. This daunting idea that people cannot work together and grow our city is antiquated. There are some that much rather hold on to past scars and wounds rather than address a common issue. The idea that there are members in this community, whether elected or not, would much rather stage political theater is quite interesting to me. There's too much good in our city that goes unnoticed because we choose to champion ideas or positions that would divide us versus connecting us. Why must everything be a either or situation versus a both and? Several years ago, members of this council was in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, in a retreat, and that consultant, which you paid for, talked about both and ideas, but it seemed as though that's on the wayside for the money that we spent, the citizens spent, for you all to go through that exercise. There's too much in our community to be appreciated and valued. Then there's this ideal of a judicial center being rebuilt. Months ago, there were individuals that said we shouldn't spend money on a judicial center. But just last week, you were praising a very elected official for bringing $8.5 million into this community. So I question which one is it? Do we want a judicial center or don't we? Then the idea that the current location of the judicial center, which happened to be the old school, Could be an affordable housing situation or luxury housing, whatever it is, and people will make the statement that folks need something new. I want to remind folks that in our city, a building called the Rocky Mountain Mill, which did a number of things, but certainly that's an old building. They repurposed that building because they had vision. They got people moving in that building because they worked together to complete a project. I don't know what it's going to take to move this city forward, but I know division is not the answer. Working together must be the key. One note, Alexander Evans, whom was terminated from this city, was terminated because he took what was trash and then was going to give it to other people in the community who didn't have a suit. So when we are talking about sanitation issues of today, let's be sure that we give right information. Too often people say that I give untruths, falsehoods, and things that doesn't make any sense in unincorporated areas in our community. People who don't pay not one dime of property tax in our city, pay not one utility bill in this city, but yet has the audacity to come down here. Thank you. I was talking about Camillus Bush dancing for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. I'd like to invite Reverend Nehemiah Smith to the podium. Gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mayor, Manager, Council. On Wednesday from 6 to 8 p.m., the Poet Laureate for the state of North Carolina will be at Mount Zion First Baptist Church. Her name is Jackie Shelton Green. If you have an opportunity to come out, please come out and be a part of this monumental occasion. We are looking forward. She is the first African American to be named Poet Laureate and has served, only the third woman, and has served twice, appointed by Governor Roy Cooper. So we look forward to that, and we look forward to seeing you there. If there is injustice in conditions, if there's injustice when it comes to wages, when it comes to treatment of people, those things must be addressed, and they must be addressed quickly. We are talking about wages here in the city for our employees. We're talking about wages for, specifically in one case, for sanitation workers. And we're saying we want a 15% raise. I want people to understand what a 15% raise across the board really is. The national average for the payment of sanitation workers on an hourly wage is $17. In the city of New York, it's $17.67. In the city of Miami, it's $14.31. In the state of North Carolina, the average is $13. And here, it's $17.67 starting out, or around that. So we're already above the national average, above the state average, and in some cases above cities like Miami and New York. I'm not saying that people don't need to get paid. I'm not saying that people don't need to get a fair wage. But when we talk about fair, we have to understand that fair is a word that is subjective. What's fair to me may not be fair to you. And so I advocate for those things when they make sense. But I want people to understand what 15% across the board really means. Do the math. Get out of the emotion and do the math. And the math does not lie. You do 15% across the board, and everybody in here will have to increase their taxes in order to pay for it. And I've heard people say that they moved from different places because the taxes were too high. I'm just saying this. I just want somebody to explain it to me like I'm a third grader. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Smith. I'd like to invite Anita Cook to the podium, please.
Hello.
Hello.
This is my first time here. I reside at 2969 Old Brattleboro Road. I have a community petition that has 56 names on it that are all within a quarter of a mile of 2947 Old Brattleboro Road. They are looking to rezone the property by Copona Properties for development of Estes Village Major Subdivision filed by
Okay.
Joyner Keeney.
All right, is that a public hearing just later? I'm going to ask you to wait until that's called up for a public hearing.
Okay.
It'll just be a little bit later
So is
on.
that tonight?
It'll be tonight, yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
okay.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Mayor,
It's not tonight?
it's not over.
It's not on the agenda tonight. Would you prefer to
They
wait?
told us tonight.
Well, you know what? Let's go ahead and hear your comments, and we'll just enter it into the record, and we'll.
I have permission to speak on behalf of all of these signatures. Inevitably, we feel that this type of utilization of this property would change the character of our local area with the planned 36 two-story units. This type of construction would obviously lead to more traffic and more people in our area. The influx of people and traffic will cause issues such as increased noise, safety issues, and possibility of increased crime in our area, as well as possible reduction of our property values. We had a casualty, a fatality, at the crossroads October 20th. A girl collided with an 18-wheeler. It's a lot of traffic in our area, especially since they closed Fountain Road and the other road for the CSX intermodal. I mean, all that traffic is coming down Old Brattleboro Road. I lost my place. We as a community feel that this proposal, if approved, will detrimentally change the character of the local area. There are several reasons we are against this rezoning, including the traffic, which has already increased, like I said, from CSX, and also the closing of the Fountain Road in front of Wesleyan University. Also, they were talking about at the planning meeting using Avalon Road, which I understand now that they're saying that Avalon Road cannot be the main entrance or exit to this property. It's going to have to be Old Brattleboro Road. And they are talking about having a recreational facility. Okay, with 36 units and you're adding a recreational facility, they guesstimated 100 vehicles a day. Well, that depends on that recreational facility. It's supposed to be a senior village. But if it's a senior village, if they are selling these properties, when that property is deeded and that senior citizen passes away, it can no longer be a senior village, depending upon who their heirs are. You can't control who people leave their properties to. Lastly, if approved, we as a community will lose what little bit of peace and quiet that we have left since being annexed into the city limits. Our whole community loves watching the geese fly over in the evenings.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Thank you. What I'll ask you to do is give the petition to Mr. Daniels there, and he'll circulate that to city manager and to the rest of council, as well as your comments would be great too. While they're doing that, I'd like to invite Antoinette Cutler to the podium.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City
Good afternoon.
Manager, and councilmen. I stand before you today to remind so many of us. Harriet Tubman said, "I could have freed more if they only would have known that they was free." Rosa Parks took her place on the bus and refused to move. Here it is. We're in the 21st century, and there is a new way of slavery, buying our people out for their vote, for their voice, against us, we, a people, a whole people. We talk about coming together and being as one. You cannot talk about coming together and working together when you bring confusion into a place we're in that we are supposed to be discussing our views. I stand before you today for Mr. Jones, someone that I feel like that in the 21st century, not just stood up for himself, but stood up for others. He has a voice, and he had a job, and he was doing it. And I believe that his voice, because he knew that he was free in the 21st century, have caused him that. Here we are still waiting to hear about a 15% raise for our city workers. and we have not heard the details or anything yet as to why. I want to know why are we still in a 21st century slave, refusing to help the people, my people, your people, our people. I stand before you tonight, a proud black woman. My mother, Lula Mae Cutler, was the first head chef at Atlantic Christian College. My father, John Cutler, was one of the first black farmers in Edgecombe County. Don't sell your birthright for a bowl of soup.
Thank you, Ms. Cutler. This time, I'd like to move on to item number 9 on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. This time, I'm looking for a motion to adopt the ordinances as written and resolutions to approve the agreement and authorize the mayor, city clerk, finance director to execute the same on behalf of the city, to award rebids as recommended, and authorize the purchasing division to issue purchase orders in accordance with the council's award. Is there a motion?
So move.
Motion made by Councilman Harris, second by Councilman Daughtridge. Is there a need for discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. This time brings us to item number 10, which is a public hearing. This is explanation of a feasibility study relative to annexation number 333 on Culpeper Limited Partnership on Bethlehem Road, Ward 6, if approved. If we have a member of staff, come please walk us through the study.
Good evening, Council.
Evening.
Um,
Evening.
Before you is a voluntary contiguous annexation request, along with a feasibility study completed by the Department of Development Services. The property, which is along Bethlehem Road, is shown on the screen and is contiguous with the city limits at its southeast property line. You can see it there, contiguous with the city limits against the blue area. The parcel consists of approximately 45 acres and is currently undeveloped. Upon annexation, the applicant is requesting the property be zoned to R6, which is a medium-density, single-family residential district. And if the parcel is successfully annexed, you'll move forward with a subsequent public hearing after this one to consider that zoning request. The feasibility study outlines that all city services can be provided without significant impact, and no capital improvements are required to serve the annexation. Kirk, would you, okay, perfect, thank you. The current taxable value of the property is $36,707, and the city's net annual surplus would be $282. Upon approval of annexation, the property would be assigned to Ward 6. The annexation meets the North Carolina statute requirements for a contiguous annexation and would not place a burden on the provision of municipal services. Therefore, staff recommends approval of this annexation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from council? Councilman Joyner?
I know we talk about having those community meetings. Have those been had already?
Go ahead.
There is a public hearing for the annexation this evening. This is a public hearing, and the request for the feasibility study was heard at a previous city council meeting. But I don't believe that there was a community meeting
I believe that,
associated with the rezoning.
if I may, I believe the request is that we acknowledge receipt of the feasibility study and adopt an ordinance merely extending it into the city limits. I don't think this is a rezoning or a development issue at this particular time. Councilman Harris, did you wish to be acknowledged?
Very briefly, there was a community meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to acknowledge receipt of the feasibility study and to adopt the ordinance extending the corporate limits of the city of Rocky Mount. Is there a motion? Motion made by Councilman Joyner. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Walker. Is there a need for discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Brings us to item number 11, which is a public hearing relative to the following rezoning request recommended for approval and found in compliance with the comprehensive plan by our planning board. It's a request by Gray Berry, W.H. Culpepper Limited Partnerships, representative to rezone plus or minus 45.55 acre site on Bethlehem Road, having PIN number 3739075859974 from Agriculture A1 and Nash County R30 single, two-family residential district to R6 single-family residential district. At this time, we have staff to give us an update that will receive public comment. Please.
All right. Thank you. This rezoning request is associated with the annexation request that was just approved. The planning board has forwarded this rezoning request to council with a favorable recommendation. The property, again, is located on Bethlehem Road, consists of 45 acres. The surrounding zoning consists of A1, which is an agricultural district with single-family residential zoning districts within the vicinity. The applicant is requesting to zone the property R6, which again is a medium-density, single-family residential district. The property is currently undeveloped. At the planning board meeting that was held, 2 neighboring property owners spoke, citing concerns about flooding on the property. The planning board has forwarded a favorable recommendation to the city council based on its consistency with the Together Tomorrow comprehensive plan and that it anticipates no negative impact on the surrounding area. The planning board did consider traffic and surrounding land uses in its decision to send the favorable recommendation, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And as a follow-up, there were community meetings associated with the rezoning request, including the planning board, which was the public hearing. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff before I open up for public comments? Hearing none, at this time I'll open up the podium for anybody here, a member of the public who wishes to speak on this particular rezoning request. Is there anybody here present that wishes to speak in regard to the matter at hand? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion to adopt the ordinance. Is there a motion? Motion made by Councilman Joyner. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Walker. Is there a need for discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Matter carries. Item number 12 is consideration of the recommendation from the planning board meeting, which was held on September 12th of 2023, and acknowledge receipt of the planning board minutes. Overview of the requests and recommendations by the Director of Development Services, or key designer. So at this time, if you'll please come forward and give us an update on this. It's a public hearing relative to the following rezoning request recommended for approval and found in compliance with the comprehensive plan by the planning board. It's a request by Racetrack Incorporated to rezone plus or minus 7.01 acre site having PIN number 356214343819, located on Wesleyan Boulevard, southeast of the junction with Thomas Betts Parkway, from I-2, which is heavy industrial district, to B5, which is a commercial services district.
Thank you. The planning board has forwarded this rezoning request to council with a favorable recommendation. Again, the property is located on North Wesleyan Boulevard where it intersects with Thomas A. Betts Parkway. It's outlined in yellow on the screen. The property is approximately 7 acres in size and is currently undeveloped. Surrounding zoning includes I-2, which is industrial, to the north, I-2 and agricultural to the east, and B5, which is a business service district, to the south. And North Carolina Wesleyan is to the northeast across the intersection. The applicant is requesting to rezone the property from I-2 industrial to B5, the business service district. B5 is intended to support a wide variety of commercial services and uses. At the planning board meeting in September, the property owner to the north spoke, citing concerns with traffic safety and vehicular access to his property. But the planning board has forwarded a favorable recommendation to the city council based on the request's consistency with the Together Tomorrow comprehensive plan and that it anticipates no negative impact on the surrounding area. The planning board considered surrounding land uses and zoning as well as traffic on the adjacent road in its consideration. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions from council? Okay, at this time I'll open up the podium for public comments, or there's anybody here to speak on behalf? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, council member, staff, good evening. My name
Good
is
evening.
William McKinney. I'm an attorney at Haynesworth Sinclair Boyd. I represent Racetrack, who Tommy Peace here is on behalf of. Want to thank you for consideration of this opportunity, of the rezoning application, as well as city staff, who we've appreciated the opportunity to work with. This is a project that allows for more jobs, more entrepreneurship, a way to improve some of the traffic flow around this intersection. As staff knows, we've been in ongoing discussions with the neighbor. Certainly respect Mr. Barnes, have appreciated the dialogue with him. I think we have a fundamental difference of opinion about whether this development will be an improvement or not, but I have appreciated the good faith discussions we've had with him to date and look forward to continuing those. If we receive approval that would allow for then a site plan to be subsequently reviewed and approved before any construction would begin. Tommy, do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, thank you all for your consideration. As William mentioned, we're looking to maintain an open dialogue with Mr. Barnes. The site plan is still early on in the process, and if approved, we look forward to working through any items that may come up with DOT and any other agency that will be reviewing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of the public here to speak on this matter?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to speak on, my name is T.W. King.
All right, Mr. King, if you'll please come to the podium.
Thank you. Before I begin my presentation, I would like an opportunity to pass some things out to the council, because one of the issues that's been raised is safety.
Sure, if you'll hand it to Mr. Daniels.
See if I can figure out a way to get up here. Didn't think at this age I'd been using a cane.
Just walk around to the front. We can move the barricade for you.
All right, may I walk around?
Yes, sir, please.
Thank you so much, appreciate that. Or did you pass those out?
Can we get a copy of
Pass
this?
those things out?
He's gonna pass them. I was gonna pass them out later, but they need to look at it.
No, we go ahead and pass them out right now if you would. Yeah. Just give you a moment to take a look at that, so I won't be repeating obvious things, but.
I can help you if you want to give me half. I would miscount it. I would miscount it, I think. I got it, thank you. Okay, Mr. King?
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As has been noted, I represent Marion Barnes and his company, Frontier Trailer Associates. The biggest concern that Mr. Barnes has already been alluded to, and that is the safety concerns. For those of you who may not be familiar with Mr. Barnes' work, Mr. Barnes deals with tanker trucks, and they come in and out of his facility. We had one day last week where he had 32 tankers come out, in and out of his facility. And as you know, some of those tankers carry propane, some of them carry liquid gasoline, and so the very dangerous instrumentalities that are dealt with. And the development of this piece of property next door, in our judgment, is going to be a very, very difficult thing for this property. As you can see, without a racetrack being next door, as you can see from looking at the things that have been passed out to you, there are a series of accidents that have occurred right there at the intersection of Mr. Barnes' property. And we can only anticipate that if you've got more traffic coming out from the racetrack location that'll be immediately next door, you can only anticipate that that is going to get worse rather than better. And there's really, in my judgment, these uses of this particular property are just not consistent with one another. It seems to me also that we're getting the cart before the horse a little bit here, because we do not have any type of information that has come down from the North Carolina Department of Transportation. So we do not know what the Department of Transportation is going to do with respect to allowing this access to the property. And so as a result of that, you may rezone a piece of property, and we're going to be sitting here with no judgment from North Carolina Department of Transportation, and it's not going to be able to be used for racetrack because they're not going to be able to get the necessary driveway permits. So it seems to me that at a minimum, we ought to wait until the North Carolina Department of Transportation has had an opportunity to let you know how they feel about this project. It's a very difficult intersection. I don't know whether you folks will recall the history or not, but when this Thomas Betts Parkway was placed in operation, initially there was not going to be a direct access from Thomas Betts Parkway into Mr. Barnes' property. After negotiations with the North Carolina Department of Transportation, it was decided that the safest thing to do would be able to allow direct access from Thomas Betts Parkway into Mr. Barnes' property. And so that really, I think, was a good thing to have happen. But when you're talking about putting people coming into a gas station, and we're not talking about simply automobiles, we're also talking about an area, as I've seen a draft of what they anticipate.
Mr. King, I need you to tighten up a little bit if you can.
Okay,
Time has run out.
I understand, thank you. But the bottom line is we're concerned about safety. We're also concerned about the fact that North Carolina Department of Transportation is not active. We hope that you will deny this rezoning request.
Thank you. Is there any other member of the public here wishing to speak on this particular rezoning matter? Any questions from council? Councilman Blackwell.
Well, I just wanted to know, normally when we are discussing rezonings and they're recommended from the planning department and the planning board, unless there are conditions placed, there are a number of possibilities of development. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's
So
my
when we rezone a piece of property, we're rezoning it for the full possibility of the entire slate of allowable development options. Is that correct?
I absolutely agree with that statement.
Okay. So, you are speaking specifically about one application of the allowable uses. Is that correct?
That is correct, but that's all that's before the board currently.
Okay. So, is there any commentary from the planning board or department that has come with this other than the basic information that it meets the requirements of rezoning?
No,
Well,
the
I was
question is
asking-
addressed to staff right now.
Yeah, I would like the staff to speak, and then, of course, would love to hear your perspective.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just a minute. Just wait.
Is it okay if I project?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. The planning board considers the full range of uses that would be allowed in the B5 zoning district. And so an approved rezoning would allow all of the land uses that are approved and allowed within that B5 district without consideration of any specific use. And there were no conditions recommended from the planning board.
Yes,
I've got
Councilman Daughtry.
I've got a question. It was been brought up about North Carolina DOT. In the rezoning, typically that doesn't occur, Ms. Pinkston, I don't think, until it goes to to approve the plans. Is that accurate or not?
That is correct. With the rezoning, we would consider the types of land uses that would be permitted on that site. And then when the development is proposed, then we would review it against the regulations within the Land Development Code, and North Carolina Department of Transportation would review that along with us to ensure that access from that state road is acceptable and meets their requirements.
So is it safe to say that we're not allowed to consider that tonight during the rezoning, that piece? And if the redevelopment, the plans would not come before this city council, would it? It would just go through the planning board, or would it come to the city council? I'm not sure. The plans,
They go to the planning board.
but that we wouldn't see them is the point after that.
Well, I mean, it's a public document. You can see it if you want to.
No,
but-
I'm talking about, we will not weigh in as a,
For
for action. Thank you, Councilman Blackwell, I appreciate it. So it would not come before us for action?
That's correct.
Okay, so I'm struggling here because we're bringing up the DOT when that doesn't come up until later. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council?
Mr.
Yes, sir.
Mayor,
Councilman Harris, I'll recognize you.
I believe the initial party mentioned that they're still trying to work out something with Mr. Barnes,
There have been negotiations, that's correct.
and I see the two gentlemen nodding their head affirmatively. I make a motion that we give them 30 days more to try to work out an agreement before we take this matter up again at the next council meeting.
Sure. Is there a second to that motion? And then is there a second to?
I second
Mr. Walker seconded. Okay. I'll recognize you, Councilman Joyner.
So I guess maybe in that 30 days, will there be something, some information from DOT on this?
No, probably not.
No, okay.
Probably not. Okay, I have a motion to table the matter for 30 days and a second. Is there a need for discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. What?
No, I didn't know we could actually discuss the motion to table.
It's what was your motion?
Motion was to table for
Not
30
to
days.
table, I don't think it was to postpone it.
Postpone it.
Postpone
That is-
this matter till 30 days.
But I think we still got.
And I was thinking because it was limited to a timetable that there was a need for discussion, but regardless.
Just a motion to postpone.
Motion passes though, so we'll move on. Item 13, thank you for that, Councilman Blackwell. Are there any appointments to be brought before the board tonight? Okay, I have two that I'm aware of. One is James Theron has requested to be moved to the planning board for the Ward 4 seat, and Camelia Tucker appointment to Ward 7 seat for animal control and advisory board. Is there any other nominations to be made tonight?
I move for approval.
All right.
Second.
Motion made, second by Councilman Daughtry, second by Councilman Daughtry. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Item 14 is a request to remove from the table 6% COLA from the table. It is an item that is not debatable or amendable. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. All right, I need a show of hands, guys. How many people would like to remove the 6% COLA from the table? 3. How many people are opposed to removing it from the table? 4. Thank you. All right, motion carried. And then with that, I'll adjourn the meeting.
I have a comment for you here, guys.
Council's meeting's been adjourned.
I had a comment. So you're gonna be that rude? You're gonna be that rude? I'm gonna say it anyway.
Just go ahead and talk.
But you are rude. You know what? Rude. Rude. Very rude.